All right, welcome back to the Golf Podcast. So, Mike, I had done some digging on this because you and we're unfortunately too young to have really witnessed Jack Nicklaus play.
Right.
But we were recently filming something at Baltusrol where Jack, he famously set the scoring record there. He won twice. He actually set the scoring record twice for the U.S. Open there.
Right.
And so I'm like, I want to do a little bit of digging because, I think, do you agree with me? Like, the debate that goes back and forth, Tiger Woods, who's the greatest to ever play the game?
Of course,
right?
always.
And I think we both always say Tiger. Tiger would be our first pick
right.
as being the all-time greatest. And the argument can go either way, but a lot of people will say, well, it's because of you're younger, you've watched more of Tiger, whatever it may be.
True enough.
There's one thing in my digging that now I can say pretty much undeniably was that Jack was the greatest major player who ever lived.
The greatest major player that
the
ever
greatest
lived.
player in majors who ever lived. And that's I some people might say like, well, duh, Frank. But I'm saying that not because he has more wins than Tiger. It's because of how dominant he was in majors across the board. So I started pulling up some of these stats and they just absolutely blew my mind. And the first one tells such a big story. 18 is such a big number, and we know like with Tiger fighting to attain it, and he's still got a long way to go, given his age, and no one else is even close. But did you know that Jack had 19 runner-up finishes in majors?
Jeez.
You think about the difference of the way the ball bounces could have been the difference in X number more majors. He had five of those majors alone came either in a playoff or a one-stroke difference.
The ones he came in second?
Of those 19 where he came in second, 5 were decided by either a playoff or one stroke.
Jeez.
Meaning, if in just roughly half or whatever of those he converted, he could have had 20 majors.
Yeah.
He could have. Out of those 5, if just 2 times a one-stroke difference, he would have had 20 majors. I mean, absolute pure dominance in majors. Now, like I said, you want to do tail of the tape, and we could talk about, Tiger having more overall wins, or some people will say like how Tiger was more dominant in his, world number 1 streaks, and that's tough to compare because they didn't even have necessarily a world number 1 ranking all of Jack's career. But when like I said, when it just comes to majors, how about just this? If Lee Trevino didn't play the game, Jack would have had 3 more majors.
Lee bumped him out 3 times.
3 times. 3 times he was edged out by Lee Trevino.
And I think Watson, as you got more into like the early 80s, Tom Watson was the guy who knocked him out a few times.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just like the difference of a couple players could have been Jack being in the having a 20 handle, like 20 plus majors.
Sure.
Listen to this. Trevino really was a thorn at his side. He beat him in the 1971 U.S. Open in a playoff. Then he beat him by 1 stroke at the 1972 Open Championship and 1 stroke at the 1974 PGA Championship. So 3 total strokes, one stroke each time, basically, with a playoff. And they would have been 3 more majors for Jack.
Yeah, I wonder why Jack was so dominant. Again, I haven't watched enough tape of Jack. I'm too young to have seen Jack in his prime. Was he just consistent? Was he just like, was he aggressive? Was he a gopher guy that he made it work? Like that Baltusrol 1-iron shot, did he do that all the time?
He was one of the smartest to play the game. He was also incredibly athletic. He hit the ball a long way.
You're right.
He's one of those guys who had the all-around game and also had the mentality. We talk about like Tiger winning and his strength of his mentality, like how Tiger would... It was intimidating to his opponents. I'm sure that Jack had a certain degree of that, but also just smart golf, knew his way around golf courses, and just could win. But Tiger, so this is interesting too. Tiger, although it's nowhere near that 19 number, he finished runner-up in majors 7 times in his career. Tiger did. So if he converted less than half of those, he would have tied Jack's record. Right. And again, all these are big what ifs, and it's just fun speculating. And I know really when it comes down to it, it's a lot more nuanced than that. But you think over 4 rounds of 18 holes of golf, and the difference being 1 stroke in a lot of these, one single swing of the club,
right?
And it's a difference in a major. Tiger also has 31 top 5 finishes in majors. So Tiger, obviously, we always know.
And he's played in over 90. I think I did that stat. I checked that the other day. So that's like 30% of the times. He's top 5 in a major.
It's like what it came down to, and I'm looking at this, is that both of them were just always in it. Always in it. You know, there was always the chance that they could win. But with Jack, I mean, some of these...
his records were even better as far as, like, wasn't he always in the top 10, you were saying?
He was like always on. So I'm looking at this. He this is a crazy one. Yeah. Talk about like Jack would always be there Sunday. He finished 7th or better in 68 majors. 68.
Stop it.
I mean, we're talking about a career like 68. There's 4 majors a year. He was
like 15 years,
right? I mean, like he was in it and able to win for such a big portion of his career.
That's incredible. That's case in point for what you originally said, best major player of all time, right there.
Right. It's like if DraftKings was around back then, you would just always have to put a little bit of money on Jack.
Always.
You would have to, because it would just be he's always going to be in the hunt, right. And it's just whether he has it that week to win or not.
It was easy to gamble back then.
Now
it's not.
Listen to this streak from 1971 to 1982. Jack finished outside the top 10 just once at the U.S. Open.
Wow.
So he was in the top 10 at the U.S. Open every year for like 11 years.
The U.S. Open.
The U.S. Open.
The hardest major.
Right. So now you're just thinking, and here's a major that it's not like Jack was just a one-track guy. Like, he has
right.
Augusta, and he just always
he just showed up
there.
anywhere, and he played.
Yeah, the U.S. Open's bouncing around. Like you said, the hardest tracks, they could grow the rough in. It was crazy.
Right.
The USGA would set up these courses. And you'd be watching that. Imagine, I mean, that predates us, but imagine back in those years, you're a golf fan, you just turn it on Sunday, and Jack's somewhere in the top 10 every year.
Every year.
For a decade.
How incredible is that?
I mean, that's
dominance.
Absolute dominance. I'm just going to keep hitting you with these. In 44 majors, from 1970 until 1980, so that full decade, the 70s, Jack missed one cut. He missed the cut one time. So he's there every
one
weekend.
Full decade.
For a full decade, 44 majors.
44 majors. He made the cut at 43 of them.
Yeah. And Jack was coming up on everybody really quick, too. You know, as a young guy, he came up quick. He has 3 top 10 finishes in majors as an amateur.
Wow. As an
amateur, he was in the top 10 3 times. So before he even started his full professional career, he was top 10ing in majors.
So he was just a born winner. I mean, the guys, yeah. I mean, I'd love to go and just like. I mean, I know we're
stating the obvious, and I'm sure there are some of our listeners and viewers who, you know, were old enough to gotten to see him play and are like no kidding, guys. They're like yelling at the screen. But, you know, as younger guys who didn't get to see it, didn't get to watch Jack, and we only know the big number. You know, until I really dove into it, I mean, of course, we know one of the greatest to play the game, if not the greatest, depending on where you stand on that fence. But we all know the big number, you know, 18 and whatever it may. But dissecting it now like this, and I'm like, come on.
I know it's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous.
But this might be part of the key, too.
I can't believe that.
This is crazy, too. Jack, for the old equipment that he was using, he could flush the ball.
Yeah,
he could hit
we've seen it.
So listen to this. He won. It was the 1963 PGA Championship. Had a long drive contest. He won with a poke of 341 yards. It was a record that would stand for 20 years.
Wow.
So imagine 63 hitting the ball 341.
No. With that equipment,
so
absolutely.
Jack, you know, he came on the scene, like I said, very young. He's an amateur. He's in there in the mix of the majors. He had the complete game. And he had power. He was an athlete. It was just incredible. It was just incredible what he did.
I can't believe that. Wait, this long drive thing. Wait, let's back up a sec. Is this something that happens at the PGA Championship to this day?
I don't know. This could have been just a side thing. I wasn't able to find too much information on it. I don't know if it was held as its own thing, or if it's just the longest drive of the week. There might have been a whole they were measuring.
The week.
But he said they called it a contest. He said he won the 1963 PGA Championship long drive contest.
That's so interesting. I mean, I would love to go back. Maybe it's the 86 Masters is the one to watch, but I'd love to watch Jack play.
Yeah.
And like physically, like down the line camera, see how he shapes shots, like physically watch him play golf.
It would be,
because we haven't seen much of it.
And as much as I've even tried to do some digging, there's not a lot of footage
Yeah.
Because
way back before 70s, forget it.
70s, forget it.
Were they even filming down the line like we see PGA Tour? Like, could we see shot? Obviously, no tracers, but can we see shots?
Tracer,
or were they
the guy
just
with
filming?
Pencil.
I feel like if you see old school golfer, they were like filming head on.
They would, yeah. They had
couldn't
a lot
see
of,
where it was going anyway,
like cranes and filming and trying to cut, because they also didn't have the ability to cover the golf course the way they do now with as many cameras.
Right.
So maybe there's a couple cameras in strategic spots around the course, and as the 70s and 80s, obviously it started to really.
I
but
bet
it was
the
nowhere
86
near the
Masters
quality
would be the highest
now.
quality we would get of Jack then.
Probably.
Okay.
Probably.
So that would be the one to watch.
But I tell you, it does bring up a good point. Like, this would be a fun thing, and I know a lot of guys probably wouldn't do it because they don't want to get like injured, but it would be cool if for some of the big events anyway, if the PGA Tour did a long drive.
Yeah.
A separate event. Like if you did that on Wednesday, or you know what I mean? Like after the Pro-Am.
After the Pro-Am, we go
and you got all the guys to the range, and you just did a long drive.
Yeah.
You know what? They
3 shots?
They're so like, about like doing different things. LIV should do it. Somebody should do that. You should take everybody who's in the field that week and just do a long drive champ of the week.
I feel like that'd be a good way to grow the game.
It'd be cool.
It'd be cool because like long drive is its own thing, and it was cool. Recently, we had Martin Borgheimer on the show, and it was funny how he said he's like he said Bryson shouldn't win because he's a golfer, and and it just showed the difference in how obviously Martin is a incredible golfer himself, but like how they consider it like very different.
Yeah,
the way the sports are.
They do.
So there might be some guys who don't want to do that, but just even if it was a casual one, I mean, I don't even mean breaking out like long drive.
Right, just
drivers.
a casual tee
just
it
like
up.
your driver, just like let's just do a quick long drive.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. DJ
That would be
would win that every single week at LIV.
Yeah,
if LIV did it.
No, Bryson.
Oh, Bryson. That's right. Bryson's there. That's right.
Bryson would win that every week. There's no doubt.
But he's got to use his regular driver.
Yeah, but still, Bryson came in second in the actual long drive competition.
I'm sure he could probably bomb his regular shafted driver.
But I would watch the heck out of that even on the PGA Tour. I want to see, even if they're not bombing it as long as like long drive, I would love to see some of these guys who are pretty long hitters stepping up.
I would think it would be great.
You have
it's a different element to the game.
Yeah,
it kind of reminds me of like the Pro Bowl. Like during the Pro Bowl week, they have all these fun challenges for the NFL players. I think during the championship weekend, like it should be something kind of like that. Do these fun challenges, like
it'd be
like
have that
cow
QB
breaking the
that
glass,
QB competition.
Yeah, exactly. I think that would be fun. Like
a short game darts competition.
That'd be so fun.
That would be cool. It would be cool to see. But anyway, whatever the backstory is there, I just thought this was absolutely incredible. I mean, to think that he has 18 majors and 19 runner-up finishes. The idea is that just with the slightest little change, a little variation over those 4 days, he could have had so many more.
I know.
Just makes me show like the tail of the major tape at least has to go to Jack, obviously, over Tiger. Not even just and I know the obvious is the total wins, but forget total wins for a second. Write down the list. The amount of top tens, the amount of made cuts, the amount of
I agree. I even think if
finishes.
Tiger converted 3 of his runner-ups to wins and they were tied at 18-18, you still got to give it to Jack.
You still got it, because look at all these 19 runner-ups. Like I said, 7th or better in 68 majors. 7th or better. It's just absolutely incredible. Tiger has 31 top 5 finishes, but still half really of what Jack's got there.
Yeah.
So it was just absolutely incredible. But anyway, speaking of, I want to quickly talk about, speaking of LIV, I want to talk about, because this week was the big finale. We ran a poll. We'll talk about that in a second to see, who watched it, what the thoughts were on it, because it now wraps up LIV's inaugural season. And I also want to talk a little about the Bermuda, the Butterfield Championship, because there was some interesting stuff that went down there and some really good golf that was played, but the course, the wind was just incredible. So we're going to dive into both of those, but let's do a quick word from our sponsors and let's get into it. All right, listen, you don't get to be number one just because you talk a good game. Obviously, you have to earn it. And Titleist earns that number one ball in golf every week on tour, with more players trusting the Pro V1 and Pro V1X than any other golf ball. And the crazy thing is that it's not even close. In fact, it's often more than 70% of the field. And the numbers are even more impressive at the amateur level. In fact, we did a breakdown of those amateur for this year's U.S. Amateur, and it was incredible how many chose the Pro V1 and Pro V1X. It's the number one choice at the NCAAs, the U.S. Amateur, the U.S. Women's Amateur, the U.S. Junior, just to name a few. Just to name a few. So across the board. So make Titleist your own number one. Tee up a a Pro V1 or Pro V1X on your next round and always bring your best.
And guys, FootJoy, they released the Thermo series not long ago. It's their most advanced apparel layering system ever that features layering items designed specifically for golf to enable play in all weather conditions. So it's getting cold out. Golf courses are still open. I actually love playing golf this time of year. The only issue is it gets cold, Frank, you know. But these base layers, mid layers, outer layers, and the pants that are in the Thermo series collection, guys, they're made with these materials that move with you throughout the swing. No restrictions. They're lightweight to reduce bulk, and that also means when you delayer, you could just basically roll these things up and shove them into your bag. That's what I love about them. But they're temperature regulated to ensure maximum comfort no matter how many layers you're wearing that day. That's the beauty behind the technology. So check out the entire Thermo series by FootJoy today. Just visit footjoy.com.
All right, so real quick, I want to just cover the this week's PGA Tour event, then we're going to talk a little bit about LIV's big finale, the big team event. So I was watching a little bit of this, and what it immediately did was solidified. I mean, I had thought about it, but it solidified Bermuda as a bucket list golf spot for me.
Anything on the coastline you love.
I mean, are you kidding, though?
It could be Gonda. It could, I don't know. Anyway, it's on the
Did you
coastline.
see how beautiful? I love
gorgeous.
coastline golf.
It's gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. The palm
But
trees, the water. Yeah,
It was
the light blue water.
Stunning. It
Yeah.
was stunning as a location.
And when the wind is not up, it looks very nice. But when the wind is up, you're like, I don't
Danger
know.
zone.
Yeah.
And what was so incredible is you got to view the difference that the elements really make, because you had in the final round the first couple of holes where it's protected from the wind. The guys were really going low. I mean, they were tearing this place up. You saw numbers at like 21, and I got to 21 under.
But 9 under was first day.
Right.
For Smotherman out there.
But it all depends on that wind. But then they make the turn to the back nine, and the bogeys and the double bogeys started coming on. You're seeing it like affecting putts, everything.
Wind is nasty in golf,
It is
right, man?
nasty.
It's impossible to play in heavy wind.
But what I was so impressed with, and I'm always impressed with watching the PGA Tour, it's just such a different level, is the way that they just change their approach in order to make those. Because like you and I would just be happy with like, okay, there's the pin. I just want to put it close, and like
Right.
whatever it takes.
Whatever
right?
it takes.
These guys have multiple ways of getting it close, and what I mean by that was like you saw as the wind started kicking up, they were starting to flight those wedges lower
the
and
golf
lower.
games are
and
Swiss
lower.
Army knives.
I'm like,
Yeah,
what
they
the
just
heck?
pull out whatever they
Right, I'm like, 100 yards. That's the same wedge for me. They're just like, whatever. They're going to take different laws. They're going to de-loft it. They're going to, and these guys were
it's
hitting
impressive.
these low wedge shots and getting them tight. But it was incredible. But this kid Ben Griffin had the lead, and he was really tearing it up with that. You know, and especially those holes before the wind kicked up. And then I felt bad watching his fall apart.
Yeah.
That was tough to watch, but it shows a lot of promise for him. I think he's a rookie.
I think he's a rookie too. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I know it's not the strongest field out there, but there's some.
But still, you go out there like James, our buddy James Nicklaus, who went out there. Unfortunately, he missed the cut. But if you're like him in his position, fighting for like a career in this game, and you have a week like Griffin's had, that's promising, man.
It was an incredible
Really
week, and it came down to the last little bit. It was tough to see him slip the way he did, but hats off to Seamus Power, who won this thing. Now it's his second PGA Tour win, and he fought there. He lost some strokes too in those windy couple holes coming down the stretch, but he fought it out and ended up finishing at 19 under. Just incredible the way his game worked out. And I wondered, like some of his like Irish background, if he's a little bit more adept and used to that wind.
Probably. Just growing up playing it.
Yeah.
So does that book him a ticket to the Century?
I believe.
No, I think the Century you have to win in
It's
the
the year
previous year.
before. Yeah.
The previous.
So he'll be
season.
able to go to the next year's.
Oh, I'm still so confused as to.
I know the
when
wraparound
season
season
starts and
just really
the guys
messes
from
this
last
up.
fall who won are playing next month or in January at the Century. If
Right.
that makes sense.
Right.
that makes
you know.
sense. But I
Because the
feel like
Century is
I
technically
gotta-
part of this season.
I gotta just be honest with you. The Bermuda, I got a bone to pick with the trophy. All right, I know it's a triangle.
The triangle?
There are some ugly trophies in the PGA Tour. Okay, and we could do a whole show where we rank how ugly. I mean, if there's ever a trophy I think I would never want to win, it's the Zozo. Because I don't know where I would put.
Where would
that
you put
thing.
it? You need a bigger house.
Yes. Like,
Yeah.
What do you look at? It's obnoxious. And if you only just won the Zozo, you're like, yeah, that's the only weird fan looking thing I have. But then you had like there was one I think shaped as like a ram. I think it one thing you win like a conquistador, you got like a helmet. There's some bad trophies.
There's
in golf.
some too that like
And this triangle thing was terrible.
I feel like sometimes the sponsor
Sorry.
gets a little.
I'm sorry, guys. I love you, Bermuda. Believe me.
But I'll tell you what, sometimes too, you're right. The sponsor sometimes gets a little bit too, like, isn't the Valspar like a paintbrush?
It's a paintbrush with a paint can.
Yeah.
With like metal. But
I mean, I know they pay a lot of money.
Yeah, they
to
deserve
sponsor
it.
these things, but on the same token, it's like maybe relax with the trophy.
Relax. You know, the Zozo, when Tiger won the Zozo, it was a big Halloween costume that year. We saw a lot of people making it.
That's funny.
I think Travis Fulton was it.
He
had the red shirt, black pants, and this big old thing.
Oh my God. Yeah, well, that's its own segment. At some point, we're gonna have to put together the best and worst trophies.
Yeah, there are some really good ones.
There
like
are
the
some
Wanamaker. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
if I was a trophy I want to win,
of course. Or are you thinking like
even
an
the
Augusta?
Masters little house thing is pretty cool.
The Clubhouse.
We'll do a whole thing on that.
We're gonna dig into that. But anyway, what of course we got to talk about is LIV this week.
Yes,
and the question I have is that the viewership numbers, because they're so public, YouTube and stuff like that, does this spell disaster for LIV? Because there's no doubt in my mind that there's got to be some scrambling happening this morning amongst the higher ups running this league of being like, come on now. Now, they may also, there's been a lot of money committed to this, and they may also be like, look, this is just part of our long term, and we're going to talk in a second about what some of their the business plans are, because that was also revealed this week for LIV. Mm-hmm. But you look at this and you think, on paper, here's two things. This is the finale, right? The season finale. It should be the most watched event for that reason.
Right.
But it's the team event.
Yep.
It is the difference. The difference that was shouted from the rooftops from the PGA Tour, the excitement. Why LIV is so different. It's the team element.
Event, which they're putting all their money behind.
That's the team, right? This is not just the PGA Tour 2.0. This is totally different. This is the team. So this was your first really big team event. And the headline grabber, it was a $50 million purse. So now you got to be thinking, you're LIV, you laid out $50 million for this event, not to mention all the money you paid these guys just to come over to LIV.
Right.
And you do all that for 300,000 views on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's 300,000 total cumulative views over the entire 5-hour live stream. There were people who were watching and checking in, and there was at times, 50,000 people watching.
Yeah.
A lot of those numbers didn't happen until the final couple of holes. People tuned in just to see who was going to win.
Final holes.
Just to see the final holes.
There was pushback on, like, they could be watching it on the website. They could be watching it on Facebook, but
let's be real.
Yeah, who's watching?
How many people are really watching? Because the website is tough to watch on. The way the structure is, they don't have like a thing where you can beam it up to your smart TV or whatever. I think most people, if you want to watch, like you watch golf on TV, you're going to use some sort of smart device, and YouTube, it's the easiest way to watch it. Maybe some people, but let's give them that. Let's say 100,000 more people watched it on the website, which anybody who's watched it on the website knows it's not the best viewer experience.
Correct.
It's like this little player on the website.
Yeah.
So anybody who's bearing that, 100,000, maybe another 100,000 watched it on Facebook. Because a lot of people don't watch long form on Facebook.
They don't.
YouTube is usually the place for that type of
course.
thing. If you're not watching broadcast television. So if we add those together, that gives you 500,000 people. 500,000 people. Now imagine
football was the big competitor.
It was. And that's what I want to talk about, the difference in the season.
Because football's on TV. So what are you going to do? Sit there on your phone and watch LIV?
Right.
No.
But can you imagine you laid out $50 million to get that many views? I made a joke the other day. That literally means that more people are now watching Fat Perez than Pat Perez.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because you go to Bob Does Sports and some of the big YouTubers right now, they're pulling 700, 800,000 views per video. So you're going and watching Fat Perez play a match against Bobby and Cold Cuts.
Right.
And you're getting 700,000 people watching it.
Yeah,
and then you've got LIV with Bryson and
best players in the world.
Some of them, right?
I'll be honest.
Some of them, right? Well, you had the number one player in the world briefly, Cameron Smith.
Yep.
Go over there for 300,000 views. Is this a major disaster for LIV? Like, you guys weigh in the comments and tell us. Is this a disaster, or is it just a bump in the road of the long term?
My thing about LIV, though, is put all the politics and everything, your feelings aside. LIV itself, I believe, is a good product. So imagine if on Sunday morning you woke up and you put on Sunday afternoon, and at 11 o'clock you put on Channel 2, CBS, and kicked off was the LIV. Obviously, they're not going to be on CBS, but imagine it was. Wouldn't you tune in? It's easy for you. It's on TV.
So that's my question. Is it
in the background?
Is it that it's just not easy and that's why people aren't doing it?
I think that might have a problem with it. Because what are you going to do? Be on YouTube? You got the family over? Where are you going to go? In the bathroom with the computer? If they're watching football on the big screen, where are you going to watch this? But if you're flipping back and forth on the TV between LIV and like we used to do on US Open, whatever big golf events. We go from like a football game to a
yes. I think football was a big part of that problem, but it makes me wonder though, because like for me personally, and I know there's going to be different viewing preferences and generational stuff like that.
Yeah,
I have Apple TV, right? I watch everything through Apple TV, so it is very simple for me to switch between YouTube and the football game because I just go to my like Comcast streaming app for my quote unquote cable,
right?
And then I'll flip over to YouTube. I watch YouTube on my big screen, so it's a similar viewing experience for me.
All right, now
I don't know if others have that.
Picture your father trying to do that.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Generationally, like my father is never
he's never gonna tune in to LIV. Because where would he watch it?
The most he would do is like he likes to watch some stuff on his iPad, and I just got him starting to watch some YouTube.
Okay, so you're getting him into YouTube.
So if I told him it's on YouTube, so that's my question then. Does that mean that LIV's viewership problem really comes down to a product problem, the product they're putting out, or a broadcast problem? If they were on traditional broadcast, same as PGA Tour, would they get the viewership, or is there a bigger underlying problem? Because to me, I just worry that there might be an underlying problem when your biggest event, you're not getting enough interest.
But it's still buried. It's on YouTube. Like we're not used to. Like we're watching football on TV on the couch with the family. Not everyone. I don't have an like. It's just like it's not. I didn't.
That's a solid point. I agree.
I just think
not as easy to.
It's not as easy to access.
But the reason I keep wondering is because I'm thinking like if it drew enough attention and there was enough curiosity, people would find a way to watch it. You can still. I mean, the truth is, although like a lot of people have cable still and they watch that way, what is the stat? Like 90% of Americans have a smartphone,
right?
So and Android phones come preloaded with YouTube. So it's not like YouTube is hard to find. It's not like it's just on the website. True. So what I mean is like if they had built up enough curiosity about LIV and enough people cared, they could find it. Mm-hmm. So the concern I have is, does this mean that not enough people truly care? If that's all the viewership you could pull, and then more so, does this mean that their business model is not sustainable?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I think, kind of talking to that point, I think it is a little bit of both, the product and the broadcast. I think that product-wise, they should have went all in on the team event, or like every event should have been a team event, and not even tried to play like going against the PGA Tour as for like the individual. I think it would have been way more fun if every event was purely a team-based event. Team. Yeah, and especially if they're going for the franchising in the future, I think that's
because we like team golf as golf fans. We love the Ryder Cup. We love President Cup.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like for this being that final culmination, the big team event, the big matchups and all that type of stuff that we were looking for. And now it's like, you're putting whatever some of the matchups were, like it's Cam Smith and Dustin Johnson or whatever it was. Those are headline acts, and that yet nobody really tuned into it.
I also feel like they kind of, like, I don't know the term, shot themselves in the foot here by not doing more team-based events throughout the season. And then just springing a team event towards the end.
Right.
I think if they had more team events, there would be more. What if it was
in their defense though? It was a short season.
Well, I was gonna say, what if it was moved up? Like I'm thinking, like
that's what I'm kind of driving.
Does anyone care right now? We're in football.
That's what I'm wondering.
What if it was before the FedEx Cup?
There is that. We're going to talk about this a little bit later.
What if they went January to August?
They're going February to September.
That's the thing. So now
that's their next.
Whereas early, I thought, oh well, this is a brilliant move. Don't go head-to-head against the PGA Tour. Make your events on either alternate weeks or alternate event weeks or after the FedEx Cup, which they did. Mm-hmm. But what they made the big mistake of doing is what you keep saying. What PGA Tour has been pretty smart to do is don't put any premier events once football season is going.
Done. Yeah.
Right? Because at least in America, you're going to really compete.
Right.
Right? And they went head-to-head against football and lost.
They did.
To a large extent.
And the President's Cup went head-to-head against football, and they did pretty well. I think a lot of people tuned into the President's Cup.
I don't know what the viewership was of the President's Cup.
I don't know, but it was better than LIV.
Right. It was better than... Well, the average PGA Tour event pulls about 700 to 800,000 viewership on the average event.
On the average.
But this, again, was their big event, their $50 million headlined event. But we even put a poll out just earlier on the community page. We said, will you be watching this week's LIV Golf team event? And 56% as of when we get a screen grab of this poll said no. So there's a lot of people who are it's not just a matter of not being able to find it. There's just a lot of people who are choosing not to necessarily watch it. And I don't know why that is.
I know.
I mean,
that's just it.
I have an idea of why it is because there are the political ramifications. But when I say I don't know, I mean on a broad scale, like what is it that it's everyone making an actual decision, or is it that it's hard to view because of where it lives? I don't know. But the fact is, it just remains the writing's on the wall. You know, you can kind of spin it however you want, but the reality is a major event, $50 million, the big event to end your season, and you get 300,000 views.
Well, they got to do something about that because you saw the number of how much they spent this year.
I can only imagine.
$784 million. And
what they do, they budgeted $2 million. The Saudi put it $2 billion away for 3 years, I think, to run this thing.
So it says LIV's first year expenditure, according to the source, is pegged at $784 million all in. Another $1 billion is committed for next year as the schedule will increase to 14.
And I think if back of the napkin math, can we say that they've probably made back almost next to nothing?
Probably
because there's no event sponsors. It's all sponsored by LIV. They do have merchandise, but that's been slow to roll out because people are just getting used to like who the teams are, and there's no diehards going to buy that stuff just yet. It's slowly rolling in. But I'm even thinking about this. I mean, we know YouTube from our own thing and stuff like that. 300,000 views. I mean, YouTube, even if it's
paying that much,
right? I mean, maybe if they made a couple $1,000, right? But so they're almost making nothing back yet,
right?
So I don't know. Again, you guys weigh in the comments. Do you think that this spells disaster for LIV when you look at that low viewership for their biggest and most expensive event of the season? Or is this just a bump in the road? And more specifically for you individually, did you choose to watch it or not? And why? Because this is something that's going to be, it's unveiling and unraveling itself as it goes. And it's very much a learning process. And LIV is not going away. They're committed. Like I said, $2 billion. There's going to be some more time. Is this a short blip in the story of LIV, or is this the indicator that something's under the surface, something's a problem, and this is just not going to make it? That's what we want to hear. But anyway, switching gears. So let's talk about what LIV's business plan is.
Okay.
Because as we said earlier, like we know that there's an issue for sure with viewership and it's been down. But recently, the executives from LIV, they gave a media presentation and highlighted the business model changes. And there's some significant changes.
Yeah, the players seem thrilled about it.
In here. So
are they massaging the players to make them feel good about making their decision that they made?
It's possible.
We'll see. Okay.
It's possible. But I wonder if one of these helps to remedy that viewership problem that we talked about earlier. And the first one is that the season for 2023 is now going to run from February through September.
So they get 3 months off.
Yes, and the shift of February through September is a dramatic change from what we saw this year, which we were speculating that could it be that a big part of why the viewership was down because they're competing with football.
Right. They went into October, almost November.
Right.
Yep.
So whereas I think in some ways it was smart to try not to compete directly with the events of the PGA Tour, and they ran late summer and after the FedEx Cup, they ran some of their big events. LIV did, but now you're seeing a shift. Now it's going to go like head to head right against the meat of the PGA Tour season.
I wonder when they're going to do that because so much happens. You got the FedEx Cup playoffs, and then you got the Ryder Cup, which is September and August, September. Like when are they going to? Is all what happened last past weekend going to happen right after? Well,
there's no doubt. If you're going February to September, there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to have events that are going to go on the same weekends as PGA Tour events. There's a PGA Tour event every weekend,
right?
You know, the ones that'll be definitely in question is I obviously don't think there's going to be any LIV event the week of the Masters in April, the majors. There's no way they're going to do something because they're still pulling hard that their players will go play in the majors. And as of right now, it looks like they still can. But that's going to be a huge one. There's also going to be a future transfer market of players. So I'm assuming what they mean by that is trades.
Yep.
Right? So players can get traded from one team to the other. I think they really want to keep building on this obviously this team.
Yeah, it's becoming
component.
a business, the team. It's its own little business.
It is.
Okay, what else?
Well, evidenced by that is that the 12 teams will be owned 75% by LIV and 25% by principal players is what they're calling them. And we had reported on this, I think, not too long ago that eventually I think their goal is for LIV to get, or at least the Saudi part of it, to get some of their financial backing out that they had originally put in and start to sell the teams, and they'll become bigger owners.
How much can those
teams
really make?
That's what I'm wondering, because I still haven't seen a revenue model.
Right. Like,
so you go and buy a team,
and they win all 14 weeks, let's just say, and they win $100 million.
Unless as a part owner, do you take home some of those winnings? Because right now the winnings are going to the players, right?
Right.
Okay. So, I mean, Zach, how does F1 work? How does the owner make money? They have sponsors.
Yeah, a lot of sponsors, advertising.
But if they win don't they get money for a race?
I really don't know how that works out, but they don't ever talk about, Lewis Hamilton won X amount of $1 million from this.
Right.
I think they're all car companies. For the most part, they're car companies. And so it's amazing advertising to sell vehicles.
Well, and
that's probably where they make the majority of their money. Honda's losing money being in Formula One, but they're making it back probably tenfold because they
win on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Yeah, they're building the engine.
And how much does a team in LIV make when the team wins that week? $4 million for the week
per week. I think it's $4 million. So each guy takes home one. Isn't it? Each guy takes home one?
It's
so
either one or
I mean, I don't see that. Let's say if it's a team event, the team takes home 4. They split it equally.
So now is someone going to come in and take one of those 4?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that's just it. Another way that teams make money, team owners make money, is owning part of the broadcast. Didn't we say that with the Yankees with Yes Network and that
football,
big deal that was done? Right. So you're the owner of the Yankees. You get a portion of the broadcast. Well, right now there's no broadcast.
So who created the Yes Network?
Yankees.
The Yankees.
Right.
So why can't LIV create the LIV Network?
Well, they have nowhere to put it. That's the problem.
And
they're
they would
trying
have
to get a cable
probably
company to say, we'll put that.
buy
Right now,
a channel.
Right. As of right now, no cable company is putting out LIV.
And how many cable companies are in the world? There's a lot.
I mean, there are a lot, but you have to then remember that the majority of television channels are all owned by probably 3 conglomerates.
Correct.
Right.
So if those 3 big players don't want anything to do with LIV, they're just not going to be on TV.
They're not going to be on
Right.
TV.
So right now what LIV was looking to do was actually purchase airtime, which is going the other direction. It's not revenue. It's obviously a cost. So what I'm saying is, as these people who become owners, whatever the ownership is, what is that? Because I even think of when you own a soccer team, the asset, because of is it the sponsorship, the sponsorship money, the money they put on the jerseys, the all that type of stuff, the broadcast. LIV would obviously have to iron all that out, because right now they're sponsorless events. Everything's sponsored by LIV. And right now they're just pulling from that same Saudi money that they have. And at some point that has to change. But that's what they're saying. LIV is making that commitment that looks like they're trying to get other owners and other money in. 75% owned by LIV, 25% owned by some principal players.
And do they expect the principal players to buy 25% of the team, or is it going to be granted to them?
No, they might
because
have to
it's
buy
so now is Phil's $200 million that he got from LIV, half of that money going to go away because he has to pay $100 million to buy 25% of this team that doesn't have
because you're so
value?
assuming that Phil would buy the team.
Well, I assume that the principal players are going to be like Cam Smith.
No,
DJ.
I don't think they're going to be players, golf players.
That's the question I have. When they say principal players,
to me, I thought that meant
as a broader term.
Team
it could be.
Captains.
We don't know. It could be players who have a lot of money, like the DJs and Phils.
That's how I assumed.
So you're that could be
partners.
it, but you're hearing it different than I'm thinking principal players just being
who's in play to buy this thing?
Who's in play to buy?
What wealthy people are in play?
Exactly.
That's what I think.
See, my head went to a completely different space.
Right.
They're going to sell these to the players so that the players have a play and a hand in everything.
Like a franchise.
To me, that makes more sense. Yeah. Like having the Phil-owned, backed team.
But it's still a lot to figure out.
DJ-owned and backed team.
There's still so much to figure out, though, because let's say Phil is a part owner of a team, and in 2 years he decides to retire. What happens then? Does ownership? Because ownership could get to be, especially if it becomes like a business, and ownership could be like a weird thing. But the other thing they're saying is now that each team will have substitute players, which would bring the league to total of 60 players.
And we envisioned this. We saw this coming a mile away.
We did. And you'd have to have subs. You can't have a 4-man team. The guys are going to get injured. Guys are going to have conflicts. They're not going to be able to make it. You can't have you're down a man. it would be you almost be out of contention being down.
But
a man
if the team
that week.
wins in the week that you're not there, do you make any money?
It's a good question.
sure that'll be
How
part
is
of
that
the plan.
split up now that they're 5-man teams with the
I bet the
substitute?
off guy of the week still gets compensated somehow.
You would think.
Could you imagine, Frank? We don't need you this week. You stay home. We'll
Yeah.
send you a check if we win.
You'd be like Pat Perez. See Pat? I mean, his
Pat-
headline was just,
Pat's having a year of his
his
life.
headline was just too good. I gotta.
What's
find it,
that
but-
quote?
Yeah. Hold on, Pat. Let me tell you, because
This guy says more
at
people
least
are
if
watching
nothing
Fat
else.
Perez
I mean,
than Pat
he's been
Perez.
the butt of the jokes, but at least if nothing else, he's owning it. He goes,
Oh, he's owning it far more than any other golfer on the tour. He's like, I don't care. Like
Pat cleared $7 million in team prize money this year, and he just said, "I'm paid. I don't give a, you know what."
Right.
So
Good old Pat. He also got about $10 million to go there, which was speculated. So not a bad 3 months for Pat.
Not a bad 3 months. I personally still think that that's part of jumping back to what we were talking about before. I think that that's part of Liv's bigger viewership problem is when you have guys like saying, "I'm paid. I don't care." A lot of people are just like, I don't have a desire to watch this as much because it just doesn't feel as hard fought. It feels like a lot of guys are just rich and getting richer, and it doesn't matter who wins and loses.
Right.
It doesn't feel as hungry, not as hungry. But anyway, going back to the big changes that they were talking about. Let me pull up that graphic that I had again. So, future transfer market of players. The 23 season will be February through September. 12 teams owned 75% by LIV and 25% by principal players, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
And each team will have substitute players, meaning 60 total in the league. But I think the biggest change out of all this is that season shift. February to September, we'll put it head-to-head against the PGA Tour, and we'll get a lot of our questions answered with regards to, do people care and are they watching it? When it comes down to Sunday afternoon, you're sitting on your couch, and which one do you put on?
Right.
You know?
And they're probably going to do it right after Super Bowl. We'll let that get behind. Waste management, get behind.
Why wouldn't LIV go midweek? Wouldn't it make so much more sense to have their events Monday to Wednesday?
You know, it's a great question because that question's been raised even before with things like with less viewership that deserve more viewership. Is it
But
just
who's
the competition?
really going to watch it then, though?
But that's the thing. People say, like, remember the LPGA Tour? A lot of people said,
Right.
let them play the Monday through Wednesday or whatever it may be. So you have golf every day to watch.
Oh,
Right.
so you're saying like people working, not available to watch TV and stuff?
Yeah, like
Well,
I bet
people work
or just
Thursday and Friday too.
I bet rounds 1 and 2 of the PGA Tour normal events barely get any views, right? Normal events. The only ones that'll get views will get the Masters and stuff like that. Thursday at your desk, you got the thing fired up.
It's always the diehards are watching. the
Diehards
leagues,
are
and
watching Thursday,
Your more
Friday.
casual golf watchers are
So
Saturday.
I don't
Sunday.
think there's enough to watch LIV
So there's
midweek.
really like no option here for them besides to just go directly against the PGA Tour and hope it works out eventually.
Unfortunately, for them, I don't think that there is another option because what would it be? Clearly, if they do what they did this year and try to make it after the PGA Tour's meat of its season winds up, they're going to go against football. Because remember, Ernie Els had suggested this. He said, why don't the PGA Tour and LIV work together? PGA Tour eliminate its fall season, the wraparound season, which, as we said earlier, is confusing
Little
itself.
wacky.
And just go wrap up the FedEx Cup in the end of August. Or let LIV do its thing from September through November, and then fold up the tents and move back to the PGA Tour.
Right.
But the thing would be, LIV would still be going up against the 10,000-pound gorilla of football.
It would.
I mean, right now, Saturday people are watching college football. Sunday people are watching the NFL. It's just the reality of most of the country.
Right. And we're also in the middle of World Series. So there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on right now.
I mean, that's...
But anyway, so regardless, though, LIV continues to unveil this plan as it goes, and there's set to be a lot more events next year. But that's the big business model change for LIV heading into next year. Will it make a difference? That's what we'll have to see.
We'll see, man.
We'll see.
Only time will tell.
Regardless, though, like I said, it's. I think there's more to the story. There's more to be written, and even when you had guys like Rory, I forget what Rory's quote last week was, but he was like he was sick of like the back and forth and whatever.
Yeah, I think like don't quote me exactly on this, but Rory said something along the lines of all this us versus them stuff has got to come to an end. and we need to, I don't know, kind of get the eyeballs back on the game and not exactly the drama of the game.
Which is tough coming from Rory because he seemed like he was one of the biggest promoters of the us versus them on the PGA Tour side.
Yeah.
So, but I think what it tells is, like, if you read between the lines, I think it's just that everybody's getting a little bit sick of it. And it's just like the storyline can't continue forever.
But I also feel like
something's got to happen.
I feel like Rory was smart by saying that, because if he was the one kind of bashing LIV in the past, he was doing that to try and like get people on the PGA Tour side. And now I feel like he's saying, oh, don't talk about LIV. Don't even give him the time of day, and nobody's going to talk about him anymore. If he continues to say, like, oh, all this us versus them stuff's really not that big of a deal, like, that was the main talking point. So now people might not tune in because they're just like, we don't care. Like,
right.
If there's no rivalry, who cares?
Well, some people have said that PGA Tour and Moynihan from the start messed up. If he really wanted to kill LIV, he wouldn't have given it as much attention as he did by creating all this.
Right.
Because, like I said, from the viewership, it doesn't seem like people are super interested.
Yeah.
Right. But again, like I said, we're going to see this unfold next year. And I've even heard rumblings, and it's almost like now you don't want to speculate too much. You don't want to throw guys under the bus because we've speculated about certain people and then they don't go to LIV. But LIV is now saying that they're going to make 2 or 3 more big announcements before the end of the year. We would think this is it. It's over. But they say they want a couple more arranged before the end of 23. And now they're saying, and take this with a huge grain of salt, but Cantlay and Schauffele,
I know, I saw it,
are on the table that you could see them go before the end of the year.
Huge hit.
Ricky should go and collect a bag. And now he's playing better,
He would get a bag too.
You would think, Ricky, because Ricky will bring some eyeballs.
Bring eyeballs.
But but again, it's just going to keep looping these back. We keep saying these things. Oh, Bryson is the hottest guy on the PGA Tour, right? Everybody's watching him. Bryson will bring eyeballs. Oh, Cam Smith just won the Open. He's, number one in the world, or flirting with number one in the world. Number 2,
he
right?
Does give you more of a reason to tune in, because you tune in to see Cam.
Sure, but it doesn't seem like it was enough to turn the corner. It's not moving the needle. It's like, Cam will bring the eyeballs.
Right.
Dustin will bring the eyeballs. Now you got some names, and you got 300,000 views.
Yeah.
And you're...
What's up?
Yeah.
Something's up. Something's up. I don't know what it is, but
something's up, all right.
Something's up. Anyway, that's all we have for you guys this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure you guys subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And always, we're going to leave the comments open. We ask only that we keep it as respectful as possible. I know LIV and PG Tour can get heated, but let's have an honest debate and honest conversation about it, because at the end of the day, we're all golf fans and we want to see where this goes. So leave your comments below, and we'll see everybody in the next video.